Welcome to the One Day at a Time Recovery Podcast, where my guests share their stories of addiction, how they recovered, and the tools and practices they use to stay sober now. Well, Julie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Arlina. It's a privilege to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Yeah. Listen, you and I are friends. We met several years ago through the She Recovers community, and I've just been so blessed to have you as a friend. It's nice to be in this world of healers and people who are out in the world really trying to have an impact, reduce suffering in others, and really people who are on their own healing journey. It's so funny because people pitch me all the time to be on the podcast and do always do like a little pre-interview chat, and I can sniff it out in 2 seconds if someone has done their own work or not. And that's
Oh,
like a
yeah.
it's an absolute requirement for me. And you have done so much work. And listen, you're standing on a lot of knowledge. Like you speak, was it four? Is it four languages
I
fluently?
work in three.
Three. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's impressive. I can barely manage one, but I think it's amazing that you're able to help. It's Spanish, French, and English. Is that right?
Yes. So
Yeah.
every day I work in all three.
That's wild to me.
It's fun.
Is it fun? Yeah, you're so smart. Some people just have like a natural aptitude for languages, and so I really admire that. And you really tell me a little bit about what you're currently doing.
I wear a few hats, but the work that is the most important to me right now is to empower people, namely women, to put themselves in the driver's seat of their own life, to create their own identity and reality, and to take their healing into their own hands.
Yeah.
We live in strange times, Arlena. Lots of weird things going on, lots of change. But the beautiful part is that science is uncovering so much, and there's so many new knowledge, healing modalities, right? So that we used to think either I'm good at this or not. There are tons of tools right now, and there's tons of data that can help explain our suffering. So to be to work as a coach on that journey where everything becomes so complicated and to help women untangle, to guide them and to see the difference that it's making in their life and for them to really empower themselves.
Yeah.
It's the most gratifying work. So I do that. I'm also a trainer and speaker for mental health. And yeah,
You also do a lot of work in like the corporate environment too.
yes.
Yeah, that's really
Mhm.
important. I feel like it's so interesting because I feel like the tools, strategies, and practices that we use to change really extreme behaviors like addiction can absolutely be adapted in the corporate environment because there's so much dysfunction in the corporate environment. And, pe-
Yeah,
and people really need, it's like if we can use these tools to break addiction, for heaven's sakes, we can use these same skills to, heal the dysfunction at work, which is really kind of at a less, to me, in my mind, if there is a scale of problems, like if we can solve it over there, we absolutely can solve it in the corporate world too.
yes. And I work mostly in the corporate world with executives. And you know what? For example, the tools are transferable. So
Yeah.
emotional regulation is just as useful at work as it is in our personal life. Healthy communication skills that are based in nonviolent communication, caring for ourselves, giving ourselves space to think, to identify our needs, those and organizational skills, right? Both for the workplace and for our own life and our own
Yeah.
committees
Yeah.
are
Yeah, these
so
these are really
important.
important skills that I think that are missing. And I love that, empowerment is really about taking extreme personal responsibility for all our feelings. I heard somebody say recently that power follows the blame finger. So if we're blaming somebody else, they have all the power to, control and manipulate you. And I don't know about you, but I am That is really offensive to me. Like, I don't like that idea that other people can control me, So I think if nothing else, that is a very good reason to take personal responsibility.
Yes, and to gain control. We can't
Yeah.
control every variable in our
No.
life, but the
Most things we
things
can't
that we
control.
can, no, but how we choose to feel emotions, to receive
Yeah.
them, because yes, we do have a choice, right? We used to think either, well, my grandmother was like that, my mom was like that, I'm like that too. I I don't know, get triggered easily, or I'm not good at communication. This person is. Mm-mm. There are beautiful tools that
Yeah.
we can use. And it's so funny because for for example, in the workplace, right? To work on strategies, and I kid you not, I work on strategies of body language, on how to say hello, how to do small talk. And we create a registry of 5 different questions to ask people with follow-up questions to get the ball rolling. For some people, that's
Yeah.
what we need to do. We need to start small.
It's so funny. I'm going to put a little pin in that
Yeah.
because a lot of times people don't really know how to make small talk or they maybe talk shop or whatever, but to really connect with the person, not just the role that people represent is really important. And you said something that struck me like a thunderbolt. It's not just the questions to ask, it's the follow-up questions. Because if somebody is not asking me a follow-up question, I don't feel like they're really listening to me. They're just waiting for their turn to speak again. And that you can feel the energy shift
Yeah.
when someone asks a follow-up question. I think that's a
Mhm.
big deal. Okay, but let's backtrack just a little bit because I feel like, we're talking about solutions to different things, but I really feel like it's important to start with like what the problems are. And you had a such a interesting story, your own personal story, which kind of got you into this space. And I'm just curious in terms of, where you want to start. We were talking about starting with the midlife crisis, which I myself am midlife. I feel like a lot of people in my audience are midlife.
Yeah.
And first of all, how do you define midlife? Is it like between 30 and 60, or is it a shorter window than that? How do you think of midlife?
You know what? It's very interesting because with the organization that I follow and that I went to, which is called the Modern Elder Academy,
Oh,
that
yeah.
helps people
Chip
in
Connolly,
midlife.
right?
Yes. So I believe it can start as early 30s and until 75.
Yeah, because we're living longer now, right? So what's considered midlife
Yes.
is
And
wider.
the I think the average age of startup owners is 48, right?
Interesting.
So
Okay.
a lot of people, all that conditioning about age is changing, and
Yeah.
I'm loving that because
Yeah.
it's one of the most important things for me to put everything through the filter of sustainability and longevity in the work
Yeah.
that I do for myself and for my clients. But you're saying midlife unraveling, midlife crisis. Do you not see the gravel behind me? There's a whole lot of it.
Yeah, so you and I met through She Recovers. It's like people who are trying to quit drinking and things like that. Where is the drinking and your workplace? We were going to talk about your workplace PTSD. Tell me a little story about, how that showed up for you.
You know what? The drinking, I had a whole other bunch of problems that we'll talk about before, but the drinking and stopping drinking is what opened the door, everything else. It's a key that unlocked the door. So I was a tenured teacher teaching Spanish in college and university. I had been for 20 years. Loved my job, was a little bit jaded because with the generations, things are changing and there's a lot of cheating and a lot of I was in Cuba. I couldn't attend your class. What can you do for me, dear teacher? Kind of.
Wow. Okay.
So I was a little bit jaded, but pension plan and summers off, that kept me. They say the prison of tenure. That's what they call it quite
Yeah.
often. And in 2017, life brought me down to my knees. So two dangerous events happened in my place of work. The first one was an armed individual. It doesn't only happen in the States, right? So I was in the auditorium seeing a Spanish movie with 100 of my students when I stepped out for a moment because I'd seen the movie and I saw that there was a SWAT team and everything, people running around and sirens. So I was really scared for me and for my students. And they said that
Wow.
there was somebody, an armed individual in the college. And at the end of the day, they looked and looked and looked. I was scared. And turns out that the person wasn't there. And you think, person wasn't there. I'll go back in my car, go home, and that's it. That's that. My rational brain was like, nothing happened.
Mm.
Doesn't work that way. Trauma doesn't work that way.
It triggered
And
a trauma response in you?
indeed, but I didn't really know because at the time I was a full-time working mom, had to go back home to my family. I didn't even have the luxury to think, I don't think. And then there
Mm.
was another event that happened where there were death threats that were badly dealt with in my department. Few other things, really, when you say like the shittiest plan alignment of planets or planet alignment that can happen to bring you down to your knees, it
Mm.
happened in different spheres of my life. And I remember my daughter was small, 6 or 7. We were in California. We went to Disneyland and to Malibu and like everything. I look at the pictures, with the Disney castle in the back,
Yeah.
everything looked fine. That's when I broke down. On top of everything, I got the flu and I was still drinking. I was, you know what? I think when my daughter was small, I that's when I really got addicted to drinking. So I was a 2 to 3 glasses a night,
Mm.
Pinot Grigio or Rosé or Chardonnay. And for the longest time, I knew because I'm highly sensitive, right? It was like a black cloud following me. I knew it wasn't serving me. And then for the longest time, Arlene, I tried so I'll drink 1 glass on Thursday, Friday's fine, then Saturday did this and that, and trying to abide by my rules and waking up at 3 in the morning saying, I'm never drinking again, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of became insanity. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it. So when that alignment of the unraveling, really becoming sick in California, coming back, asking for a leave of absence, that was so difficult. And that's part of the work that I do. There is so much shame. There's so much
Yeah.
fear in asking for a medical leave, right?
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
really hard. So I did, and I almost didn't. And thankfully, I did because some people in my situation, I was so deep into PTSD and burnout and addiction that I'm, I think I'm lucky to be alive. Right when it happened to me, there was a story in the newspaper about another teacher who was never taking her days off, whatever, and she died from
Oh my God.
all that. It does happen. So
Yeah.
what happened is that so my body was sick physically, my
Yeah.
mind was sick, but I got severe vertigo. And the severe vertigo became the gift that became the key. Because of vertigo, I couldn't drink alcohol. I couldn't drink caffeine. right? Because it was so, so bad. So I lived in the corner of my sectional for about a year and a half, and
Wow.
I couldn't read. Everything made me nauseous. So I held on to walls, and then I started to have cognitive dysfunction in my executive function. So my speech was affected. It still is. I
Wow.
speak much slower. I got a when I got a PTSD diagnosis, I also had an ADHD diagnosis that explained a lot. So I used to speak, machine gun, really fast,
Yes.
ADHD, and now it's like I'm stuck in third or fourth gear, and that's fine because it's helping me a lot in what I do. But it was the hardest time. I don't wish that upon everyone. When you don't know which side is up or down
I can't
anymore,
imagine.
and in all the spheres, like both literal and figurative, it was like that. So my identity, so I started to slowly go to therapy, work with two neuropsychologists at the same time, one for brain reconstruction and managing ADHD that was exacerbated all over the place,
Wow.
and then the other one for psychotherapy, hypnosis, EMDR to help me process
That's
the
heavy.
PTSD. So
Yeah.
I worked and worked and worked, and I broke bones. Like I had a lot of physical ailments. And I think it's so important to name that when you're going through something, or if you have trauma in your life or childhood trauma, the repercussions on your body quite often, then you're going to need more physio, osteo care. You're going to tend to have more tendonitis. There's a link to fibromyalgia. There's
Yeah.
a lot of physical manifestations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting to hear about you were highly like a high, I would classify you as like a high achiever,
Oh, yeah,
right?
I've
Yeah.
always been.
Yeah, high achiever. Yeah, you're my people for sure. The high achievers, and a lot of times the high achievers are coming from a place of trying to overcome something, right? It's often rooted in sort of like not good enough, not worthy, self-blame, like all kinds of stuff. So we develop these coping strategies, and achievement is one of them. And I just can't help but wonder when all that was taken from you, including the alcohol and caffeine, and you were just left with you, I think I would have gone a little bit crazy. What was that experience like of having nothing to distract you?
I think it was multi-layered because dealing with an argument with my husband without a glass of wine, that wasn't easy.
Yeah,
Learning
yeah,
and how to manage. And that's when I held on to little things like she recovers, like the bubble hour, right? Because I
yeah.
couldn't read, I couldn't do much, but I could
Wow.
listen. So
Yeah,
I started to educate myself and that sense of community, of having surrounding my senses with suffering of other people, of understanding, of the commonality of the hardships of humanity
yeah,
felt good to me at that moment.
right.
I also started slowly to do personal development for emotional regulation, for communication skills, nonviolent communications. And I did a lot of free trainings, some free, some not, because I was on disability leave, right? So,
Right.
compassion cultivation studies at Stanford, which was life-changing. Compassion, both in leadership or self-compassion, which
Yeah.
is a part of what you do, science of well-being at Yale. And I took many courses in Mexico, actually, about socio-emotional skills. So I helped myself, and it was so right. I was on disability for 3 years
Yeah.
before I could even contemplate. So I knew that I could not go back to my place of work. I couldn't physically go back there. I had tried, and the triggers were immense, and I knew that I couldn't go back. And in parallel, I dug deeper. And I think it came naturally because I had a bit of time to
Yeah.
give to myself to think. And I kind of was in denial about my childhood sexual abuse, incest, and I was able to start my healing journey there also, to recognize it. And to me, like I know you like me, that's why we like each other. You're a neuroscience geek just like I am. And knowing, learning, educating myself about the impact of childhood sexual abuse on my health, on my development, on my brain, on my relational skills, on obesity. The vast majority of people who suffer from childhood sexual abuse will suffer from obesity.
Yeah.
The correlation to addiction is immense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
a, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is tied to a sense of security. Like if I insulate myself with weight,
Mhm.
then I'm safer. Is that true?
Well, you know what? In part, that's part of it. But the other part also is that to children, there are not many addictive behaviors that are available to you. Food is
Oh,
available in a home
yeah. That makes a
normally.
lot of sense.
So there's that also. I think a protection, definitely. And
It's
And that,
self-soothing.
yes, and then learning about addiction. So when I was still healing and knowing that I couldn't go back, I did a coaching certification in recovery coaching and professional coaching. And I thought it would be to help others at the beginning, but truly it was to help myself.
Isn't it funny? Like we did the coaching certification together and it was
Yeah.
interesting. It's like we go with this intention of helping others, but as you learn this information, it's like, of course, it's going to land on us too, right? And yeah, it's interesting how it just naturally brings everything up, and they do it in these class settings where you're able to, have some community and talk things through with other people. So we end up getting some healing that way too. That was really good. So to switch gears a little bit, I've been obsessed with this idea that underneath every trigger is a treasure. And it sounds like you got really triggered at work. You had a lot of PTSD at work. Those are some crazy, like an active shooter, did they call it an active shooter or was it active
Um,
armed person?
But funnily enough, no. But 2 years after, as I was healing and contemplating going back, then there was an active shooting back in my college,
Yeah.
and that sealed the deal.
Yeah. You're like, no, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, so that kind of brought back new triggers.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting that like the trauma was always present in your body, in your
Yeah.
mind, and an incident happens that triggers it. And it feels terrible in the beginning, right? It feels like life is over. It's a very dark time for a lot of people to be in the crisis of addiction. And like when I was going through my process and, reconciling or really wrestling with this idea that I had an addiction issue, what I thought was the worst thing that could have ever happened to me turned out to be the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I really was kind of forced to do the self-reflection work that is required to heal PTSD and trauma.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you've been on this journey for nearly 8 years. I believe you said
Yeah.
March will be 8 years. That's a huge accomplishment. So congratulations.
Thank you very
And
much.
so now you have this real strong desire to try to help other people, right? You get your coaching certification, you go out into the world and you're using all your skills and talents out in the world. And, we talked just before we started recording about wanting to bring hope to people. And I feel like the world is on fire, right? It's like a dumpster fire right now. I was just
Oh, yeah.
telling you that, My husband's friend sent him an email that talked about, Amazon laid off 50,000 people, UPS laid off 30,000. I got the numbers all wrong, but it was just like tens of thousands of people. Salesforce, just like all these companies are laying off. And so there's a lot of economic fears out there. Everyone's really afraid. But this idea of taking personal responsibility in emotion management, you actually mentioned two things that you thought were really important. It was emotional regulation and healthy communication strategies. Can we start with emotion regulation? Like, where is the like what is the skill and when do people apply it?
Yeah. I just want to take a quick step back because
Sure.
I want to recognize that there's a treasure with a trigger, and there is a gift in healing. I
Yeah.
want to recognize that I'm one of the fortunate ones.
Yeah.
We can't forget, I don't subscribe to this idea that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I want to recognize that there are fellow sufferers who haven't had that sometimes addiction, suffering can break you.
Yeah.
It didn't happen to me. I was lucky enough. And
Thank you.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I think it's important
Yeah, I'm
because,
glad you said that. I think I shared with you recently that we had a friend that passed away recently within the
yes,
last couple months, and he took his own life. And I didn't know that there was like a new way to talk about it or a different way
yeah,
to, what was the new phrasing?
we need to say died by suicide
Die by
instead of
suicide.
committed
Right.
suicide. Yeah, so that it's not stigmatizing.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that. And it was a friend of ours that had been suffering for a very, very long time and just ended up in a very dark place. And we got the news, and it was really devastating. It was so devastating. I felt really bad for his mom, and the way she found out was by accident. Like somebody found out before she did, and kind of found out in a public forum. Someone didn't know that she, yes,
Oh my goodness.
it was a nightmare. Someone found out at a 12-step meeting and called her and said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry about your son," and she hadn't heard yet. Like yeah, that's how she found out. So it was just so, it was like a series of unfortunate events, but it's like, anyway, you're right. Like not everybody survives. A lot of people die before they get
Mm.
recovery. So you're right. We are the lucky ones. Um,
But to your point, Arlina, emotional regulation is at the heart
yeah.
and could be that if along the journey, if we have a guide, if it becomes more mainstream for us to learn to regulate emotionally,
Hmm.
it might help, right? It will
Yeah.
help. It is the thing that has helped me the most. Emotional regulation, it's funny because my two neuropsychologists were from France. They live here in Quebec, and they have kind of an advance and different ways of different modalities and approaches. And I used to see, I think one, I used to see them both the same week, and then 1 week one week the other. And they both came to the conclusion that I needed to learn about adaptive thinking at the
Mm,
same time. And
okay.
adaptive thinking is giving the appropriate amount of time, space, energy, importance to an event or a situation. So to give the appropriate amount of time, space, and energy to an event or situation and no more. But that's the hard part, no more. So
Yeah.
we go on full on apocalypse mode, uh,
Catastrophizing. Yeah.
catastrophizing, ruminations, which then I learned the fancy word frontostriatal loop, right? Which we humans do to protect ourselves. So,
Yeah.
with our beautiful tools to learn how to do that, healthy detachment, emotional management. So, I always go back to that quote of Viktor Frankl, between stimulus and response, there is a space, and that space is our power and our freedom to choose.
Yeah.
That's where the good stuff is, in that ability to process. So instead of reacting with our amygdala, to rewire our neural pathways so that we are actually able to respond. So what do we need? We need space in life. We need a breath. We need to pause and look. There's the RAIN process, there's my ARC process, bring your attention to the stimuli, recognize what it is, and then choose your response. But to have that ability, no one gave us permission. We never got the memo that we get to do that. When something happens, we can take a breath. We can look, oh my goodness, this is triggering. What do I want to do with that? Or to add a communication strategy to create space again, to say, this doesn't feel good right now. I'm going to go process. So for if it's for work, let me get back to you by the end of the day with a response
Yeah.
and create space we can delay.
Yeah, I just want to kind of zero in on something you said. You mentioned the RAIN process. Tara Brach has a meditation on YouTube. It's a RAIN
Yes.
meditation. It stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. And I got to tell you, I probably did that meditation as a way to sort of daily siphon off some of the crazy, like under and during stressful periods of
Yeah.
my life. It was a way to process feelings to resolution during difficult periods. But I kind of want to backtrack a little bit in the sense that we need emotion regulation. We only know that we need emotion regulation when we've been dysregulated. So in a 12-step parlance, they say that if it's hysterical, it's historical. So anytime I had, isn't that good?
Yeah.
Anytime I had a response that was disproportionate to the situation, that was my sign that it had nothing to do with what was going on here and now. It was about something that was unresolved in the past. And I think that's why it's so important, like you were talking about doing therapies like EMDR, the eye movement reprocessing desensitization. That's a mouthful, right? Because as we, you got to feel it to heal it. What you don't acknowledge controls you, all that type of stuff. So I could see
Yeah.
why they were like, oh, we need to do the emotion regulation, but it came from an awareness that we were dysregulated. And I think the tricky part about learning the regulation is that, like, I had an experience just a couple days ago where I had an interaction with someone. One of my biggest triggers and pet peeves is when someone wants to come onto the podcast and we have a little discussion or I do a little research, and their whole platform is based on putting down another program. It
Mm.
just really upsets me to no end. I guess there's a lot of work I need to do around that. But I was like, in the moment, my heart was pounding. I was like, what is this? I noticed my heart pounding,
Yeah.
and I needed to finish this conversation. It was over like a text or whatever. And I was like, hey, just a couple questions here about this, but I was basically confronting somebody on their approach. I don't know if you don't need to put something down in order to bring
Mm-mm.
forward your tools, right? Like it doesn't have to be, I'm bringing these tools forward because this other thing is bad. Like that's not necessary. And
Of course.
yeah, I just felt super. So it was interesting. I was like, I'm having a hysterical response to this situation. What is this about? I haven't quite gotten to the resolution, but I was like, that's really tricky. Like when you're in the moment and you get triggered, your amygdala goes out, your fear center takes your whole brain offline, like your
Hmm.
vagus nerve is triggered, and it's very hard to reach for your tools in an active state of dysregulation. So, would you say that the approach to this regulation starts with preventative measures? Like, meditation and journaling? Like, how do you think of that?
I think it's multifaceted.
Okay.
So the ability to regulate emotions, you first need to acknowledge what
Okay.
is not going well, where you're having reactions.
My heart is pounding. This is not going well. Yeah. Yeah. Not now, but like, yeah, yeah, the
So
other day.
that awareness, that acceptance,
Mm,
to have self-compassion, because if you
yeah.
meet yourself with criticism, your body and your brain receive criticism as another stressor. So that's the
Right.
last thing we want to do. Kindness, always curiosity, right? To
Kindness, curiosity.
learn a little bit about what it is.
Right.
Then it's having an intention to do better. What does doing better look like? It's not linear like this. It looks like, oh my God, I don't know, my child did that again, and I screamed again, and I vowed
Mm,
not to do that. My intention is to do better, to apply my technique, to take a breath next time. Maybe next time, mid-sentence, you're going to catch yourself. Julie, we're not going there today. And then with time, even
mm,
before it happens, oh, I have the trigger. So it's a process, right?
hmm.
And with adding other beautiful protective factors, techniques such as journaling. Journaling is huge for me. The
Yeah.
brain dump in the morning to eliminate chaos, to get in touch with my feelings. And I love, I'm not religious, but what I'm reading Elizabeth Gilbert's book,
Oh,
Right All the
yeah.
Way to the River. And the
Yeah.
question that she asks herself, and I started to do that, God, what will you have me know?
Yeah.
And
Does she say God or is she saying, because she does letters to love? She's got the Substack
yeah,
letters to love. So is she saying, is she addressing love or does she say God?
in my mind, it's gone. I might be
Okay.
mistaken, but
Samesies.
whatever
Same,
universe
same.
or
Yeah.
yeah, and so that has given me the buffer along with really practical skills. When I was in early recovery, my daughter was not, anyway, she was in kindergarten or first year, right? And I realized trying to get up at the same time as her, packing her lunch and making everything, I would lose my temper. So to think
Yeah.
like practical things, I'm gonna get up before them. I'm gonna have a quiet cup of tea, journal. Those make a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
There are little things that compounded allow you to regulate emotionally. And that, when I say empowerment is important for me, that is the first and most
Mm,
empowering step that we can take to
yeah.
regulate our emotions.
To start the day doing the self-care practices. I feel like I interrupted you. So you're doing what was is commonly referred to as two-way prayer, letters to love. It's like when you write to God, what would you have me know today, or what would you have me do? What has that practice been like for you? Because then you respond as if you were the voice of God or voice of love.
Yeah, it's a way to, because I want us to dedicate some time to now because I'm in a really good place and I'm in a place where I've done a lot of healing and now I get to treat myself to tune in a little bit more to my intuition and to
Intuition,
do,
yeah.
yeah, so to really, without putting a filter, to see what comes up. So I write automatic writing to begin
Yeah.
how I'm feeling, what I'm carrying,
Mm.
what I want to do for the day. And you know how at the beginning of a journal, there is always a blank page?
Yeah.
So I like to draw. So I always do kind of a vision board with my word of the year, all the thoughts that I want to put in my mind, the intentions for the day.
Yeah.
Once I've done my brain dump, I
Okay.
fill myself with all that I want. And that has been life changing. And the third element, if we think about life of abundance and how I've integrated because becoming a business owner, like I said, I was tenured, wasn't on my bingo card, and I needed to pay for my mortgage. And I'm a
Right.
high achiever. I wanted to do well and to have, so that's the book. That's the third part of my practice, right? So automatic writing, then the envisioning, and then really having a ritual of abundance, of surrender.
And for those that are just listening, it's called It's Not Your Money by Tosha Silver. I had that a long time ago. I need to reread that because I feel like a lot of high achievers, and plus in this economic time wherever there's a lot of economic insecurity, I feel like a lot of fear is coming up for a lot of people around safety and money. And there are a lot of us high achievers that really tie outcomes like dollar amounts to our self-worth. And when we have like this desperate, needy energy tied to it, it actually ruins it, right? It's like whatever you chase runs away. So I love could I trouble you to maybe read a little something out of the book? You mentioned there were a couple of maybe a prayer or something that you read regularly.
Yes. Divine Beloved, allow me to give with complete ease and abundance, knowing that you're the unlimited source of all. Let me be an easy open conduit for your prosperity. Let me trust that all my own needs are always met in amazing ways and that it's safe to give freely as my heart guides. Right?
Love
So it's
that.
a grounding, optimistic setting to have a fertile ground for whatever you want to create in the world. Do we need money? Absolutely. Do I have financial goals? Yes, and it's okay. And the combination to me, although it was really difficult and not on my bingo card, I'm so, so happy that I left my first career, this career, as far as sustainability, because I live with limitations because of what happened to me. So my sandbox is
Physical.
25 hours a week as far as stress management, as far as
Hmm.
fatigue. So this new career works so well. It takes courage, of course,
Does, yeah.
but sustainability, longevity, it's amazing, and it is the most gratifying thing that one can do to help people empower themselves, heal, and live
Yeah.
well.
No, that's really beautiful. You know me, like I love practical strategies too, and I want to
Oh,
be
yeah.
sure that we touch on some more solutions because that we were only been talking about emotional regulation. Like, can we talk a little bit about healthy communication strategies? A couple times you've said nonviolent communication. I thought that really struck me because I don't really think of myself as a violent person. You know, I'm small. And so like I'm short in stature, so I've never been like physically violent, but I feel like my words can be kind of sharp sometimes if I'm not careful. So I kind of want to know what you mean by nonviolent
Okay.
communication, and then let's talk about some practical strategies because I feel like a lot of high achievers, a lot of people like in recovery are numb to their own needs. That, you know, when you first get sober, it's hard to begin to communicate what we don't even realize that we have needs, but like we have needs, we have limits, we have boundaries for ourselves, like what we're okay with, what we're not okay with, and those boundaries can change as we grow and evolve. So that can be kind of confusing. But how do you think of communication strategies, especially? Maybe we can just start with something really practical, like at home with your partner.
Mm.
That's the hardest one. Yeah. Let me just give you the hardest one first.
But I want to say that it
Yeah.
is linked to emotional regulation. In order to communicate well,
Yeah,
being able to emotionally
for
regulate is
sure.
essential.
Yeah.
Nonviolent communication, their four principles, is based on Marshall Rosenberg's book, Nonviolent Communication. And for example, you know it, making I statements.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, you always
You make me
say,
feel.
you make me feel. Yes, no,
Don't
no one
say
has.
that ever.
No. So, but the very first step, again, when I said emotional regulation, you need to create space. To
Mm.
communicate adequately, you need space as well. You need to give yourself time and permission to think, how does this make me feel? What do I want? Even before you start to open your mouth to say it, you need to give yourself time. So I want to go back on that idea. Some people are good communicators, some are not. Up to a certain extent, it's true. But communication strategies, it's to put a lot of time, effort, preparation, practice. When we think in the workplace, same goes for ourselves to have that ability to say, okay, so with your partner, this is really irritating for me. He or she keeps doing this. I need to talk about it. There are rules, right? In communications, like anything, there are tools. So, for example, to ask yourself, what is it that you want to talk about? The topic, the subject, because couples conversations, and my husband and I have been guilty of that, they turn into festivals. I
Festivals.
don't like, yes, I don't like it
Festivals are
when,
usually fun.
yeah, they're not the good kind
No.
of festivals. Really not.
It's like a melee.
Yeah. So to have a topic,
A
one,
singular topic. Got it.
because it goes into a festival and it gets diluted, right? And it's
Right.
you don't get the satisfaction. So to say, if I want to tell you about something that's pissing me off, when would be a good time? So to ask.
Yeah,
So
when the
first of all, to get clear on what it is that you want to say it appropriately, of course. Then ask the person, are
right.
you open? When might it be a good time for us to talk?
Yeah.
And then making I statements and maybe explaining where you're coming from. This is what I'm feeling, and identifying and being clear of what is your need, right? So, my need, I would like for you to listen to me completely, not interrupt me when
Oh,
I'm
that's a big one.
speaking. Yes, it's frustrating, or so ask, right? And then depending, so to not include other things. Yeah, but when you do that or you hear
Right.
that too, then it's when the festival begins.
Then you
And
got
it's
10
not
things on the table. We don't know what we're talking about anymore. It's
exactly so
chaos and confusion. I
one
think it's,
topic.
oh, yeah, that makes
And
sense.
if you're interested in starting on your journey to communicating better, you can read that book, Nonviolent Communication, super
Okay.
simple for principles, and listen to our friend Jefferson Fisher. Do you know him?
Uh-uh.
He's a lawyer and he's a communication
Oh,
specialist who then drives
yeah.
his car and he said, and follow me, right?
Yeah.
But
What's his name? Jefferson?
Jefferson Fisher, Fisher.
Yeah.
And he's adorable. And what I like
He looks
is
like
that
a Ken doll if I
he's cute
he's
in every
adorable,
sense.
but such good. I remember I've seen some of his
Oh,
videos and I was like,
yes.
wow, he's really clearly talented.
Golden nuggets. And always his live lasts about 1 minute. Very simple. So on one tool. So for example, how to speak with someone who's interrupting you. So
That's a
he
good
will
one.
offer normally three strategies to use so you can practice, right? Just as I was saying at the beginning, when we were talking about communication strategies, how to do small talk.
Mm.
You're Some
Right.
people are good at it, some people not so much. And there's the anxiety component, right? That adds. So to have a few sentences with a few, and when I worked with one of my clients, he said one small talk question plus a follow-up. It's like,
Yeah.
he said it's like a 1-2,
I want too much.
1-2 punch. I was like,
Okay,
amazing.
not nonviolent, but I get
Yeah.
it.
But in his
Violent metaphor.
world,
But but before I forget, because my brain, sorry to interrupt, but I want to
oh,
ask
no, go
about
ahead.
what do you do when someone interrupts? Do you let them finish and then pause and be like, hey, can we have a discussion where you're not interrupted? Like, what do you say?
Different strategies. You can name the name of the person. Arlina, you're interrupting me. So to get their attention,
Oh,
or
use
to
their name.
say, you're interrupting me, or I can't hear what you're saying when you're talking over me. Right? So they're
I can't hear what you're
different
saying.
strategies.
Yeah. Those are okay. Those are really good.
Mhm.
Those are brilliant.
But to build our toolbox,
Yeah,
what a gift. Again, empowerment. What a gift to give ourselves,
that is
right? To
empowering.
say, what you're saying to me right now doesn't feel good. I need to process. And I didn't know that I had permission to delay anything in life. So for contracts, Julie, we need you next week to do a mental health presentation. And can you do it? And so now, for example, I have this rule. I never give an answer the moment of. Let me look at my schedule and get back to you by the end of the day. Didn't know I had permission to do that.
Oh, so it's just like a system or a process or a rule that supports
Space
you.
everywhere.
Yeah, that's genius. I love it. I love me a practical strategy. That's really good.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's easy to apply. We're coming up on our time. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you really wanted to cover in terms of practical strategies for communication or emotion regulation? Was there anything that we still need to touch on?
I think mindset,
Okay,
mindset and belief.
huge.
Yes. Giving yourself permission to change. You, until today, you haven't been able to do so and so. Until today, you haven't been able to stop drinking completely. It is not a life sentence. Sometimes change requires more than one go. And as a friend of mine says, if you want a different cake, you need to try a different recipe. Humans are reticent, they resist change. We resist change. We need to be open, try again, try new. And there are so many new modalities, right? For example, somatic work to heal
Hmm.
trauma. Now we're learning that a lot of trauma is stored in the jaw.
Oh my
So buccal fascia release in the jaw, that's a new modality. So I would say give yourself permission to envision positive change, to adopt a positive mindset. And I would say get help. There are tons of practitioners, of coaches who are there to help you, who have had to learn how to heal and who can share their tools with you. It's hard to be on a journey alone for weight loss, for addiction, and now we're learning all about the other spheres, right, of addiction. That's not only alcohol use or substance. There are 28 other addictive behaviors, such as workaholism, drama, pornography. There's even like the worry, the negativity can be an addictive behavior, live in that sphere, right?
God.
So to have someone who has a good toolbox, right? Sometimes what we need is a psychologist, talk therapy. In some instances, talk therapy will not be what it is that you need. So open yourself. And that's one of the beauties of social media. We have access to things that we never thought that we could. And you need to do your due diligence to work with a coach who has, a good accreditation. But trust yourself because with someone who will support you on your journey, we go so much further. Is there an investment of your time, of your money? Of course, like anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to pay for it one way or another.
Yes, and
Right.
some like your course on self-esteem is super useful for
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
starting to go on a journey. And I've people have helped me on my way to
Yeah.
healing, and we need people just like the oral traditions in transmitting knowledge or language that we've had as human beings forever. We still need human beings to learn.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we're more and more isolated, with the technology and phones and social media, we're really isolated. And yeah, it's important to remember that we actually need each other. We're just animals. We're tribal animals. This has been so helpful, Julie. Listen, I always love talking to you and spending time with you. I'm glad that we're friends and that we really support each other. But I've learned so much today, and I'm thinking about my TMJ going, "Oh, do I have some trauma that needs to be resolved?" So I'm totally gonna look into that. But
Yeah.
if people are interested in connecting with you, what's the best place for them to find you?
Instagram, juliebloom.world, or email julie@juliebloom.world.
Got it. I will leave links in the show notes if people are driving and can't write this down. But my dear friend, thank you so much for not only spending some time with me today and my audience, but really for the work that you do in not just personal one-on-one work, but in the world, in the corporate world too. I feel like it's so desperately needed in this day and age. But it's been great, and thank you so much for all your time today.
Thank you so much, Arlina. Thank you for all that you do.
Thanks.